You said a few minutes ago that you're proud to be Armenian, but that fundamentally you're American. And that suggests to me that the idea of my group versus your group, zero-sum identity politics, you're rejecting that in favor of some more universalist connection to other people. We're all kind of in this together.
Yeah, in favor of America and Americans, absolutely. Because if my brother actually confronted me about this, and I think he made a really good point. It made me start thinking differently. He kind of referred to America devolving into like a commuter country.
Right.
Where people come here and they don't see themselves as Americans. They're born here. They don't see themselves as Americans. They kind of see this as like the land of opportunity. But they think my identity is not an American. My identity is I'm white, I'm Black, I'm Latino, I'm Armenian, whatever. And you kind of like segregate yourself into these like high school like cliques where everyone else is your enemy, right? And you can't be thinking about Americans that way. There has to be something that bonds us together, an identity that brings us together. And that identity is that we are Americans.
Exactly.
We should want to see this country thrive. And I think a lot of people who do immigrate to this country want to see this country thrive. They love this country and they hate what has happened to their country, right? The freedoms that they were not afforded in their country of origin. But make no mistake about it. If you are here and you think, well, I'm just here to reap the benefits of what this country offers, but I don't really care about the American identity or experience, then you don't get it. You just don't get it. I mean, I don't know what else to say.
One of the things that I disagree with Ben Shapiro most strongly on, and I just want to be clear, I don't hate Ben Shapiro at all, and we disagree obviously on the use of force, on Israel strongly, but that doesn't make me emotional. Ben is looking at the world from a completely different perspective, which I reject, but I'm not mad about it. What makes me mad is the way that he describes the United States as like this economic zone, totally divorced from the actual people who live there and their customs and their history and their instincts and their connections to each other and to regions, to physical reality. He has no regard for that at all in the way that big companies have no regard for that at all. Like, shut up and freeze your eggs and get back to work. And I feel like that's dehumanizing. Doesn't quite describe that attitude. It's an attitude that doesn't see people as human and in the service of what? Making money? I mean, it's everything about that I dislike. I feel like that's never challenged on the right. Increasingly, it's not challenged on the left either. It used to be big time, less and less. But certainly on the right, anyone who challenges it is derided as a socialist. I'm not quite sure what that means. I don't think I'm a socialist. Never have been. But I don't think that we should tell people that they have no right to live in the town where they were born. Like, okay, so who are we serving here? What is the point of this exercise? To maximize profits to you? Like what? I don't know. Like, what is that?
Well, the first thing I thought of as I listened to Ben Shapiro make that argument was, so I shouldn't have the ability to stay close to my family?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, think about what ties you to the community you live in, right? The community you grew up in. It's your family. It's your friends. It's your job. A lot of people aren't able to work remotely. And part of the reason why it's so expensive to live in, some of these cities or the most expensive parts of this country is because whether we like it or not, a lot of the jobs are concentrated there. So I would love nothing more than to live in a part of the country that isn't as overcrowded as LA is, to be honest with you. Like, I want to be in nature. I want a little more of a rural experience, but I don't have that luxury because I do have to work and my job is located here in Los Angeles. And any other media job I want, unless I work for myself, is going to be in a big city like New York. So it's just this really interesting idea. Like, I don't think most Americans are walking around feeling entitled. Like, most Americans aren't thinking to themselves, hey, you know what? I'm a bum and I sit on the couch all day and I don't make any money, but I deserve to live in a multi-million-dollar mansion paid for by the United States government. No, there are countless Americans in this country who work more than 40 hours a week and still can't make ends meet. Something is broken in the system, and putting the onus on Americans and making them out to be lazy bums is what offends me the most, to be honest.
Well, sure. When Ben Shapiro says blaming the system rather than blaming yourself, your own lack of creativity, initiative, intelligence, whatever your problem is immoral. And that is a kind of long-time refrain on the so-called right. And there are things about it that I agree with. I do think you should blame yourself first. I'm trying to force myself to be in the habit of that. I did something wrong. I'm going to admit it. I think that's really important for the sake of preserving your soul. And also, by the way, you get credibility when you're honest about yourself. It's easy to be honest about other people. You're fat, but it's hard to say I'm fat, right? So like I agree with it on one level, but it's also just not true. Like we are subject to forces that we can't control. It's just a fact. I didn't write the tax code, for example. I don't have any control over the hiring standards at various companies or the admission standards at various schools. Those are systemic problems. It's just a fact. They are systems. Those are rules written by other people over which I have no control. So for Ben Shapiro to say, it's outrageous, it's a conspiracy theory to blame the system, does make me suspect maybe you're a beneficiary of a system that you can't actually defend. And so you're attacking me for asking questions about that system. That's just my reaction to what he said.
I mean, it comes across that way for sure. Obviously, I don't know what the motivations of Ben Shapiro really happen to be. What I do know is that when it comes to government handouts, he never really seems to have a problem with the government handouts that get sent abroad to other countries. You get what I'm saying? So there's that. But, you know, the other thing is, even if you're doing well, even if you're affluent, do you really want to live in a country where as soon as you walk outside your door, there's a massive homeless encampment?
Oh, I agree.
You know, do you really want to live in a country like that? Because I don't. Do you want to live in a country where close to 100,000 of your fellow Americans are dying of drug overdoses and our government seems to not really care much and in fact exploits that as a talking point to justify a potential war with Venezuela, which has nothing to do with fentanyl, by the way.
Sure. I know.
So
yeah, actually, last question on this, but I just want to clear it up. So, we played that tape of Ben, attacking me because I really like Venezuela's anti-usury laws. Sorry, I do. I don't think you should charge 600% interest annually on a payday loan. I don't think that should be allowed. Period. So,
Agreed.
I guess I'm a socialist, but I think it's predatory and cruel, and it's slavery. So no, but. In that litany, he said, Maduro's bad. Okay, I'm sure. He's dictatorial, seems to be. And he's importing fentanyl into the United States. Not meaningfully true. Probably true in some, but he's not. Venezuela is not the main source of fentanyl in the United States. It's not even close. That's Mexico. So established. Like, that's not true what he said. So what is the motive in regime changing Maduro and toppling the government of Venezuela? What is the motive there? Do you know?
I think there are multiple different motives, including the fact that former Senator Marco Rubio, current Secretary of State, is a Cuban American, has had an axe to grind with Venezuela because of the fact that Venezuela is aligned with Cuba. And look, your sick little personal pet project shouldn't be something that the United States is dragged into and is forced to fund. But the other thing, I think, it's funny, when the Venezuela story started developing, I'm like, oh, yes, finally, like a foreign policy story where we don't have to talk about Israel. But apparently, according to Senator Lindsey Graham, there's some weird connection with Hezbollah, which is that true? I have no idea, but I don't care. I don't care.
Exactly.
Are we going to go to war with every country that allegedly supports a militia or a group of people that are critical of or not in favor of or even at war with Israel? Like, that's crazy.
That does seem to be the criterion. I heard Lindsey Graham say that, and I was reminded that I'm against the 1983 barracks bombing in Beirut. Of course, it killed all those Marines. Apparently that was Hezbollah. I think it's a little more complicated than that, is my very informed impression. However, I'm against that. They did it. I'm mad. But as a practical matter, that was 42 years ago, Hezbollah does not play a meaningful role in the decline of the United States that I have noticed. So like if you're really obsessed with Hamas, Hezbollah, and to the exclusion of the issues that actually affect our country, that tells me right there that you're not serving our country, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, yes. And also, listen, if you're worried about terrorist groups that could potentially harm Israel or have harmed Israel, take it up with Netanyahu, who propped up Hamas and facilitated Hamas's funding. I mean, I think that's something that should be considered, and that's never talked about. That's never discussed. So currently, Israel, with the help of the United States, is funding these terrorist militias within Gaza. One of which, Abu Shabab, by the way, is the leader of one of them. I think it's called the Popular Front. He has ties to other terrorist groups like ISIS. So why are we cool with Israel providing arms to that group? That seems like basically setting things up for the future terrorist group that the United States will be goaded into helping Israel fight. It's so obvious if you're paying attention. So look, to answer your question, if it's not harming U.S. national security, I don't think we should be involved unless, there might be some rare instances where it does make sense to get involved, right? Maybe there's some sort of alliance that we're part of and we want to protect our ally. But I mean, bounds of reason, obviously. With Israel, there are no bounds of reason. There are no limits. And Americans are just expected to shut up and take it. And some of us have decided, no, we're not going to shut up and take it. This is wrong. Our people are suffering, and our priority should be here at home. That was the winning message that Trump campaigned on.
I know.
So put your money where your mouth is, please.
Streaming November 16th on Paramount Plus, it is the return of Landman, a product of the co-creator of Yellowstone, this show's television's biggest phenomenon, and for good reason. Academy Award winner Billy Bob Thornton is back as Tommy Norris and managing higher stakes than ever before, featuring a loaded cast, including Academy Award nominees Demi Moore, Andy Garcia, Sam Elliott. Landman is pretty exciting for a TV show, honestly. In the wake of his former boss's passing, tensions come to a head as Tommy and Demi Moore's Cammie Miller struggle to maintain control of MTEX Oil, the company at the center of the drama. And with his father coming back into his life, Tommy must juggle both his role as an oil man and a family man as worlds collide. A familiar story, but never better told than in this hit series. A lot of people are watching this, and for good reason. Landman, new season streaming November 16th, only on Paramount Plus.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.